three economic growth. We are saving $4 that's $1 trillion. 60% of that will come from services, that's a $3 trillion. And $1 trillion will come from agriculture and allied activities. If you look at it, each of these three key elements need science and technology as a driver for growth. We cannot increase India's share of industry into GDP from current 16% to proposed 20%, and eventual idea is also have 25%, unless we use high-ended science and technology. Science and technology itself will add to GDP, and science and technology as an instrument will help all these three segments of India's economy to grow. Now, if you look at it, as we say, the top 4 or 5 companies in the United States, whether it is Apple, whether it is Alphabet, whether it is Amazon, all those companies are technology companies. Amazon actually, each one of them obviously sell products which are derived from technology. iPhone is a product derived from technology, which is made by Apple. The products which are sold by Amazon, they use high-ended technology to deliver e-commerce products. Also, the Alphabet, which is the parent of Google, is actually completely technology company, though they sell products made of technology. US, the largest economy of the world, the companies which top the list are all technology companies. So you cannot have a developed India unless we use more technology and use in a manner that will benefit the people at large. Now, at each level of development, you need different kind of technology. For India's level of development today, we need technology which can bring in transformation of the lives of the common people. And therefore, the challenge for us is, can we use very sophisticated technology for the use of the common people? Now look at what are the common people's requirement. Some common people, they want very little things like clean water. Some of them want, obviously rightly so, access to clean food. Is it not possible that you can use a technology for making sure that we can provide clean water? And this is not a very high-ended technology that we need for doing that. We can actually make a technology available by making different kinds of technologies to be used for this. Isotope technology, which can help in identifying the source of water as well as helping us to clean the water. The technologies that we can use for making food last longer, is it not going to help our people either in farmers, in agriculture sector, so that the income will rise, which will add to the GDP, but also to the consumer will be able to eat a high quality, good product. So I think if we do that, we can certainly make sure that technology can be used in a way that benefits the people at large. Look at the challenge. We cannot, in modern times, can ever live life unless we have access to energy. In fact, forget a normal life, we cannot even survive without energy. We cannot survive without water, we cannot survive without energy. Can we use a technology which can generate cleaner energy? Because as I said, the industrial evolution of the climate change. And the climate change in turn has to all options to do that, and India's 7,700 long coastline. They are going to destroy the agriculture because the temperature is going up, so it is going to play havoc with farmers' lives. When oceans become warmer and hotter as a result of this, the fishermen lives will be affected. So if you look at it, each and every person's life is going to be affected because of climate change, which in turn is because of use of energy. But we cannot live without energy. And energy causes this problem. Can we create more cleaner sources of energy. We already have a solar energy, which is now coming in a big way into the grid. But can we increase the efficiency of solar photovoltaic panels? Can we use such solar energy, which can also be used for variety of purposes like solar thermal source of energy? Can we use more wind energy, which can generate higher by, by drawing on the velocity of the wind? Can we generate more wind from the same turbines by using higher efficiency? So, can we use more biomass and the human as well as municipal solid waste, which goes and which is generated in such large quantity because we have such a large population and 7.5 billion people of the world generate so much of waste every day. Can we convert that not just into energy but also something even better? Can we use convert it into maybe some areas to make our land, our soil more fertile and offering some of these waste as a nutrient to the soil so that soil also gets those nutrients which are not available through normal fertilizers. So we must therefore work in such a way as to how can common people's problems will be addressed by ensuring that technology is used as a means to work on that. And to do that, we need to link the science, the technology which emanates from science with the ultimate goal of development. Therefore, we'll have to define what is development. The development will have to be necessarily improving quality of life, not just increasing incomes of people. And quality of life need not necessarily happen with increase of income. As I was saying in the beginning, that science and technology transform the economies of the world, and we have done so much of progress. We can reach from this part of the world to the extreme other part of the world within few hours, which probably in the earlier 100 years ago will take months, if not weeks. And therefore, in that situation, we have done a great progress. But we also created problems as a result of that. So quality of life has improved, but not necessarily to the extent to which it could have been done by avoiding the attendant pitfalls that are associated with development. So if you can now realign, take development as a goal. In development, you say the quality of life is an important aspect. And then quality of life, you go into what is life, what is necessary for life. We cannot have life without water, we cannot have life without energy, we cannot have life without livelihoods for people. So farmers' life will become important, industrial workers' life becomes important, service providers' life become important, which are the three key elements of economy anyway. Can we now therefore look at science as a starting point, technology as an instrument to make development as a possibility in which development will be gauged, will be evaluated on a single parameter of whether it has improved the quality of lives of the common people. Now in India, our overwhelming and over-occupying priority is improving the quality of common people. So look at it. If you don't create jobs, it's going to be a big challenge for the people to survive. Because without jobs, how will they get livelihood? To create jobs, we need more industrial activity, more services activity. Can we use technology to develop such products which can create more jobs so that they will have to be manufactured? If you develop a product, if you design a product, it has to be manufactured. So automatically industry will go up. If you design a product, that product will have to be serviced once it is sold. So therefore service sector will grow up. If you develop a product, it has to be transported to the marketplace. That will create more service sector activity. And therefore can we develop a model in which livelihood creation will also happen by using science and technology. Other challenge is the challenge, as I said, in agriculture, we need technology. We need technology in water, we need technology in food, we need technology into services, in energy, but we also need technology into transportation. Can we develop a new mode of transportation wherein we can offer such solution, whether it is the mobility which is guaranteed by way of fuel, so we can generate cleaner fuel, maybe a biofuel, or can you create a system wherein the efficiency of use of that fuel which powers that entire activity of transportation itself is done in a way that it does not consume that much of fuel to begin with. Can we do that? To do all this, we need technological and scientific solutions. We have a possibility of using geospatial technologies. We started as a GIS, but now has transformed into a very high-ended part of it. Can we use that geospatial technology for our planning of cities, for planning of infrastructure creation, for execution of projects? And in fact, the derivative part of that technology is the UAVs. Can we use the UAVs to actually monitor the governance system itself, to ensure that our agriculture and other aspects are also integrated into it? So technology can actually bring in transformation of not just economic growth, not just better incomes for people, but also improve quality of lives of people. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to do it. And now to integrate with this the new emerging technologies, which are still emerging, but have a huge potential to integrate them, those technologies, into all known technologies even before, whether it is blockchain, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is Internet of Things, whether it is big data, which can actually, because how do you develop a technology? You must know the baseline, the issues. So big data can actually provide us insights into various aspects of socio-economic lives of the population of the world. And therefore, ultimately, technology should be used for the people. So can we therefore integrate all these new emerging technologies for the benefit of humanity, the society, and particularly in the Indian context, to address the poverty of people? I link the development, if it is a goal, poverty has to be the target. If target poverty, work on poverty, so that can lead to development of the people, and that too, even the poor people, poor today, when they will not be poor even tomorrow, they should not feel that they gained economic benefits but lost something. If they felt like that, that's not a real development. So they must increase the income without losing something which they always cherished. And that's the quality of life. And that's why natural resources, which provide them that satisfaction, clean air, clean water, clean land, all three of them, the poor always had as their inherent rights. So, in the quest of development, if they lose the basic fundamental reasons for which they always felt that they're living on this planet, if they lose that in the process of so-called development, they would not be happy. Even though income increases, they'll feel they lost much more than that. So the challenge of science and technology is that while we remove the poverty, while we ensure that more people get livelihood, while we create more jobs, how to use science and technology as an instrument for ensuring that development that ultimately is achieved did not compromise with the quality of life. In fact, not just compromise, but it improved quality of life. They were better off not only economically when they left poverty behind, but they also embraced a much better lifestyle than they were living before. And that is what can happen by bringing science as a driving force, technology as a means to achieve it. And only when we achieve that kind of development, that would be the true development that common people will feel they have got. And ultimate purpose of all this is whether people are enjoying it or not. As Mahatma Gandhi would have said, that ultimate test is the smile on the common man's face. And that is the ultimate test that we can also pat our back when I see I have created more smiles on the face of more common people. This is the success of my endeavor. As Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel would have said, that my farmer is happy, that's why Amul is successful today. In fact, he is also instrumental and inspiration for a dairy work because he felt that farmers were distressed. So he also worked on that. But why he will be happy today? Is that there are more milk that is produced, but a milk that is produced has created more incomes and happiness for the farmers of Gujarat and now eventually in the rest of the country as well. So that is a test of science and technology. How can we make that happen? So development is the goal, but that goal has to be more manifested into happiness. The development has to go hand in hand with happiness. The happiness can come only when it will improve the quality of lives of the people. And that is possible by using the science and technology, the high-ended part of it. And I'm sure an institute like yours, the Charusat, which has such a talented people, which has such a good mission, could be the right instrument to actually take it to the level at which the development can be redefined, can be reoriented, and all the three key elements of that can be aligned to each other. From people, transforming them and their lives to bring them better happiness and quality of life. To do that, each aspect of economic activity can be driven by new thinking into science, by ensuring that each and key element of India's economic activity, the pillar of India's economy, whether it is industry, whether it is services, whether it is manufacturing, all three key elements are driven by the new oriented thinking towards science. And the science results into developing such products which can be called technology. And that technology has to be mainstream, has to be integrated in all these activities. And that is what should be the ultimate aim. Therefore, I really once again congratulate you. I am just looking at the time that is allotted to me. I think I have more or less used that time. Therefore, I'll stop here, but we'll be happy if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But must congratulate you once again for taking this initiative of bringing me here. Thanks, Mr. Mohan Bhai Patel, a former sheriff, who is also your friend and my friend, but also I would call him as a universal friend. He is friend for everybody because his objective is also the same. How can we use the resources at our disposal? One of the biggest resources at our disposal is the time, and the other resource of our disposal is our intellect, and the third resource at our disposal is our commitment. So if you can combine all the three together and put it to the best of the use to bring the development, which results into, as I said, redefine the development and make that development made possible through science. But where the science resides? Science resides in the mind. And where the mind gets possibility of getting it fully explored, the universities. So just imagine, the mind may have everything, but if I don't have a possibility of exploring it through an institution like yours, that will always go waste. So Charusat University is a place from where it will be a launching pad for a new India, an India where people-centric development will happen, and that development will have happiness as an integral part of it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the time that you gave it to me, and also will be happy to be part of your institution anytime in future so that we can work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very enriching insights. I'll request Provost Dr. Pankaj Joshi, sir, to synthesize the brief that sir has provided, and maybe one question or so, if the time permits, you can always raise, sir. Dr. Pankaj Joshi, sir.
Thank you so much, Suresh Prabhuji. We warmly thank you for your precious time and your very important comments. In fact, Charusat is located in a very pristine rural environment, and we are away from the pollution of cities, surrounded by the villages and the water ponds and you see the farmland. Now we do connect with many villages in our vicinity. We also connect to many of the schools, you see, in our surroundings. And we are very grateful for your very important comments today. And we will try to incorporate them to our activity even more so going into the future. Uh, Going by, I am heard all right. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Ha. Yes. So now, Prabhuji, I would like to, being in a university, connecting to this wider theme of science, technology, and development, I would like to, mention one question or one puzzle, or rather, one
Dilemma.
dilemma which is occupying my mind. You see, I earlier I used to spend almost all my time in research at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Mumbai, thinking and talking about cosmos and universe as a whole. Now I devote also quite some time to education. Now, sir, what has happened in our country immediately after freedom is to develop science and technology. We have to develop our universities. We have to give them good direction. However, what has happened in India immediately after freedom is that most of the resources in science and technology, got focused on elite institutions like, for example, Tata Institute itself, where I spent decades happily doing research, or Indian Institute of Science, and later on, sir, IITs, you see, whereas the universities which were great once upon a time, even like Bombay University, the Allahabad University, the Calcutta University, somehow resources and talent wise, you see, they started declining. And today we know, you see, what our universities are, what shape it is in. And very largely, it is also due to the lack of attention at the level of resources, funds, as well as development attention. Uh, Sir, you see, education, I would say, is the core field. Universities are at the heart of the development, really, because that is where you see lakhs of very young students, brilliant students arrive. Not everyone can go to IIT, and I will say that not everyone who does not go to IIT is necessarily, not good. There are lots of very good people, very good, bright students in our universities as a whole. But, very few resources are going. Even today, as of today, also, that is the situation. Now, you see, in the latest spree, we created, you see, this ISERS and other institutions. Now, that is another form next to the IITs. So, I just, you having a very wide experience, you see, of administration, of the national government, of public life, and so on. I thought, I will mention my dilemma that development cannot reach unless and until we pay a lot of good attention to our universities, sir.
No, Dr. Saab, I fully agree with you.
Thank you.
In fact, if you look at science and technology, is a manufacturing. So education is a foundation.
Ji.
So basically, what branches off into science and then eventually you develop a technology.
Right.
It all has to happen through a process of education. And if you really look at education and even for development of science and technology, not necessarily you need high-ended laboratories, which of course needed, but not only them needed, but sometimes you also need liberal arts as to open up your mind so that you can then eventually use that mind as a laboratory to think new ideas. And the new idea then will be tested in the laboratory and then could be put into the marketplace. So ultimate success of a technology development will happen in the minds of people. So where the technology originates to begin with. It does not, it is tested. It might be fine-tuned in a laboratory, but it opens in somebody's mind. Then therefore, what is required is, and where this mind gets opened, in the education institution. If education is not given, how will make sure that his mind is open? So I fully agree with you. In fact, I there is I should not be one calling it a dilemma. It should be clear what you have said. Dr. Saab is absolutely right. I but at the same time I agree that though it is the right approach, maybe there is a misallocation of resources on that count. But I think we'll have to correct it. And I think the fundamental investment which has to go in is to an overall education of people. And that does not mean only scientific technology. We must have more liberal arts. We must have more ideas. Let people just go and explore their own inner mind, and we should not regiment it. I cannot say that you must study only this because I know this. Because I am the expert, so I will tell you only to study this. No, we should try to actually create a different kind of thinking in the minds of people. So I think you are absolutely right. The fundamental idea of igniting new idea can be born in somebody's mind, and then it can be further explored, further exploited, further developed by a multidisciplinary approach. But original idea will be born somewhere. So universities, educational institutions are absolutely fundamental towards development of a modern society, and even they would be the foundation for a science and technology. I fully agree with you.
Right. Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Great. Sir. Thank you, sir. I have one or two more points and references and questions based on your vast experience into power sector as well. In your opinion, Prabhu Sarji, what will be the effective solution of power generation in India and consumption in terms of capacity build up in India?
See, actually, I was also Power Minister of India.
Yes, sir.
So, power is a prerequisite for economic growth. If you are an industrial activity, what is industrial activity? What does industry do actually? Convert raw material into a finished product. That's industrial activity. So, what is the source of conversion? That's energy. So, energy is a prerequisite for even industrial growth. And unfortunately, even in India, energy is required for agriculture. That should not be the case, but it has become like that because we use so much of groundwater that to draw that groundwater, we need energy. So, in many services, like we may not even realize it, but say so called information technology can never be available unless we use so much of electricity. So, power is required. For hospitality industry, which is part of service sector, cannot happen without energy. You take even our transportation, even the railways, we cannot run railways without electricity. So ultimately, it is a very important thing. What is the ideal capacity is something cannot be said ideal. When I was a power minister in under Atal Bihari Vajpayee 20 years ago, the capacity was 89,000 megawatts. The peak level shortage was 18%. I said it is completely untenable situation. And why it was happening? Because only source from where we can generate electricity was government, the state electricity boards, which are bankrupt. And they didn't have money to put more capacity. They cannot even maintain their present system. The transmission distribution losses were more than 50%. So I said it is not tenable situation. So I come out with a new law. Today, thanks to that one law, we have a capacity of almost 3.5 lakh megawatts. Just imagine if you had not brought that law, Electricity Act, what would have been the situation today? We cannot even imagine. It was a load shedding which was part of our daily life. It has changed thanks to that Electricity Act that we brought in. So I don't think we can put an arbitrary figure as this is the installed capacity that is needed. As we keep growing, the need for electricity will rise. But at the same time, we should not look at it only from the supply side and start supplying electricity because the demand rises. We should have an efficiency of energy. That's why I actually introduced another law, electricity efficiency law, so that from demand side, we can reduce the energy use. In fact, the growing economy like India must have energy intensity ratio must keep coming down constantly, which has come down, but must come down more. The carbon intensity in the India's economic growth also must come down. In fact, the carbon intensity comes because of energy intensity. Why? Because more than half of the electricity in India is generated from coal. So as we move towards more renewable energy, the energy intensity will maybe rise, but the carbon intensity will go down because we are using renewable energy. So the three key elements of install capacity you're asking me, one, it should not be, it keep growing, but not necessarily we have to only do it from supply side, we have to also look at it from demand side and energy efficiency side. Secondly, we must reduce the energy intensity, which again is energy efficiency issue. And third, you must reduce the carbon intensity because it has a very adverse impact on the human life.
Thank you, sir. There are so many questions lined up, but I'll just try to frame that into some aspects with respect to Swachhta Bharat or so. There is one question related to Ganges, has been clearer than ever before. And how do we continue the same in terms of maintaining the standards of rivers in India?
Standards of
Rivers in India.
rivers.
Hygiene, yes.
Oh, that's a very important question. In fact, see, if you very interestingly, the rivers have become cleaner today in the last 2-3 months. Why? Did anybody go to clean them? Nobody went to clean them. In fact, because nobody went there, the rivers are cleaner. So if you want to clean a river, you must avoid the source of its pollution. And the source is human being. If you are throwing our bodies into the rivers, if you are throwing all municipal waste into the rivers, if you are throwing everything from industrial waste to everything else into the river, how can the river be clean? So to clean the river, it can be one-time effort, but as it is proved now that lack of human intervention has made the rivers cleaner. So one is to reduce that human intervention as much as possible. Rivers provide water. In fact, the cleaning of river you're asking me, each and every riverine system has a self-cleansing ability. You see that when you go to Ganga, river Ganga, we call my mother Ganga, and you take a deep into the river. Why? You take some water at the Triveni Sangam. Why? Because that was the reason why it is not just out of any feeling, only spiritual feeling. It was also had a cleansing ability. If you take that water, it was like a medicine. Every river has these great values in it. But because we have put so much of pollution, everything else, that value is lost. The reverse self-cleansing mechanism can also happen when there is a minimum flow of rivers. Many of India's rivers, barring few, don't have that minimum flow. The Yamuna, where is Yamuna in Delhi? It doesn't reach Delhi at all. Because by the time it comes into some stretches in Haryana, so much of water is drawn for agriculture that it has no minimum flow. And there is no minimum flow. How can the river be called as a river? And many rivers have become sewers because we are dumping everything that is possible. So you are asking me a question of how to clean it. First question is, it can be self-cleaning, so rivers can clean themselves. Most importantly, you should ask the question like this, how not to make it dirty. So don't ask me how to clean it.
Great.
You ask me how not to make it dirty.
Right.
If you don't dirty, how is it going to be clean? In fact, when I was the railway minister, I started this big campaign under Prime Minister Modi's guidance on Swachh Railway Abhiyan. After some time, the railways become really clean. So one person sent me a WhatsApp message. That's only small little paper. Otherwise, the whole thing was clean. Saying Suresh Prabhu claims everything is clean. Look at this paper lying there. Even before I could reply that, because I used to reply for each and every social media message by any passenger. So that was something which I raised the standard. So before I replied, at least few hundred people replied to him saying, rather than taking that picture, why did not pick up that paper which was lying there and threw it away? So why you want to make it unclean first and then take a picture and then send it to the railways saying that why don't you clean it? So if you want a cleaner rivers, don't make it unclean. It's very simple.
Thank you, sir. In that context, there is one more question. If I would like to add and raise, is how would you rate the airport hygiene and sanitation facility vis-a-vis that of the railways?
See, there is a completely different element. In fact, some passengers who travel by aviation are completely different with different profile. The numbers are different. I will tell you how many people travel by railways. 8.3 billion people traveled by railway last year. You know what is the world population? Is 7.5 billion people. So world more than world population. So obviously you cannot differentiate with one and the other. How much people pay for the railways and how much people pay for the aviation. They're completely different. But I'll tell you, that was my mission in my railway budget, which I presented, the first full railway budget.
Yes.
There was never an elevator in railway station. Do you remember elevator 5 years ago? There was never a lift in railway station. There was never a vending machine for giving water in the railway station. There was never a travelator in railway station. There was never a free Wi-Fi in railway station. All of that we started. We have made some stations like one becoming in Gandhinagar. One is already come up in Madhya Pradesh called Habibganj near Bhopal. All these stations will be like airports. I think we are trying to do that.
Thank you, Prabhu sir. I'll request Registrar sir, Dr. Devang Joshi, to synthesize and conclude. If you like to add, Dr. Devang Joshi sir.
No, sir, we are very much thankful to you for sparing your valuable time. And this very simple formula that science and technology arises from brains, and the brains flower only in the university. We are very impressed by that dictum, and we will surely follow that to flower the brains, which can come out with the solving the challenge which you again described, that the challenges of the science have to be solved only by the science. So thanks again, sir, for your valuable time, valuable insights. I also extend my thanks to our Vice Chancellor and Dr. Govind Dave for coordinating, and staff member of Prabhu sir office, Shrikant Kumar and Rima madam and everybody. We are indeed very thankful. And sir, someday we look forward to have you here at our campus. We are very sure that science will solve the problem of COVID, and we will have you at this campus to address our students also. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And
Thank
we'll
you.
be in touch. Anything I can do, please always count on my support. Thank you very much.
Fine, sir. Thank you very much.
Very nice of you.
Bye.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.